The sky above Zerathia glowed with soft violet light, reflecting off the towering crystal spires that rose like jagged mountains from the city below. Ships of all shapes and sizes hummed softly as they glided through the air, leaving trails of sparkling energy in their wake. It was a day like no other in the capital city of the alien empire. For weeks, rumors had spread that a human warrior, a visitor from a distant star, was approaching Zerathia. Most of the alien population dismissed it as exaggeration, a story for children or gossipers. But in the palace of High King Vareth, the rumors had caused a stir that would shake even the most disciplined minds. Inside the royal palace, the main hall glittered with light reflecting from the polished crystal floors. High King Vareth stood at the center, his regal form casting a long shadow as he surveyed the council chambers. His robes shimmered in hues of blue and silver, symbols of his authority and lineage. Around him, alien delegates from far corners of the galaxy whispered nervously, their complex forms, some insect-like, some reptilian, some almost ethereal, fidgeting with the energy bands on their wrists. The alien princess Lysera, daughter of the king, sat upon a raised platform to the side, her delicate hands resting on the armrests of her chair. She had long silver hair that cascaded like a waterfall, and her large eyes, the color of liquid emerald, watched every movement in the hall. Her heart pounded in anticipation. Unlike the rest of the court, Lysera had heard tales of the human warrior not just as a visitor, but as a figure who brought fear. She had never met a human, yet the stories of their courage and unpredictability unsettled her. Suddenly, a quiet vibration filled the palace. The massive doors at the front of the hall, carved from obsidian crystal, began to slide open. A hush fell over the crowd as Commander Elias, the human warrior, stepped inside. He was unlike any other being in the hall. His frame was simple, not covered in layers of alien armor or glowing energy suits. His clothes were functional, a jacket with multiple pockets, sturdy boots, and a belt holding small tools. He carried no advanced weapons or devices that hummed with power. Yet there was something in his posture, calm, confident, unwavering, that immediately drew attention. Lysera's breath caught. "Not him, father. That human warrior terrifies me," she cried, her voice trembling. The words escaped before she could stop them, echoing across the grand hall. Her father turned his head sharply, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "Lysera, control yourself," High King Vareth said, his deep voice resonating like a drum. "You will speak when spoken to, but perhaps you are right to be cautious. There is something different about this human." The council members murmured among themselves. Some leaned forward, their multiple eyes narrowing, sensing the tension. Others looked at Elias with skepticism, unsure how a single human could walk into their halls unarmed and unshielded, without fear, and yet demand attention. Elias stopped in the center of the room and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect learned from observation and practice. He did not raise his voice or make any grand claims. Instead, he let silence speak for him. That silence, strangely, was heavier than the energy shields that surrounded the hall. The aliens could feel it. It was the presence of someone who had faced dangers beyond their imagining and had not flinched. High King Vareth's advisor, a tall, crystalline being named Zytrax, stepped forward. "Human," he said, his voice a musical chime that vibrated through the chamber. "You have crossed light years to reach Zerathia. Many question your purpose. Why are you here? What do you seek?" Elias looked around the hall. He could see the doubt in the eyes of the delegates, the suspicion in the body language of the guards, and the fear hidden in the wide gaze of the princess. Yet he remained calm. "I come seeking understanding," he said simply. "I come to learn, to observe, and, if possible, to help." A few of the delegates snorted in disbelief. "Help?" one of them hissed. "What can a human, what can a fragile creature from a primitive planet offer Zerathia?" Elias smiled faintly. It was not arrogance, but a quiet certainty that did not need proving. Sometimes the smallest actions, the simplest choices, change more than all the weapons and machines in the universe, he said. His words carried a weight that surprised even him. He had not prepared for a speech, yet the moment demanded it, and the truth of humanity flowed naturally through him. Lysera watched him closely. Every step, every gesture, every calm breath seemed to carry a strength that was not physical. She felt a shiver run through her. It was not the fear of harm, but the fear of the unknown, the fear of encountering a being whose abilities and courage she could not measure or predict. King Varath studied Elias silently, then motioned to Zytrax. "Observe him closely," he said. "He may not be what we expect. Perhaps he is more dangerous, or more valuable, than we realize." Zytrax inclined his head and gestured to the other delegates. Small, hovering drones floated silently through the hall, scanning Elias with beams of light, measuring his body, his energy, his aura. Yet even their sensors could not fully capture the essence of the human before them. There was something in his spirit that no machine could read. Elias remained composed under scrutiny. When the last drone finished its scan, he walked forward toward the center of the council chamber, his footsteps echoing against the crystal floor. Each step was deliberate, careful, yet confident. The room seemed to grow quieter with every movement, as if the very air respected his presence. Lysera's pulse raced. She could feel the tension in the room, the subtle vibrations of energy from the council members, and the way her father's gaze never left Elias. Something about this human challenged everything she had been taught about strength and power. Zerathians valued advanced technology, shields, weapons of immense energy. And yet here was a being who had none of that. Standing unafraid in their midst, a sudden loud chime echoed through the hall, signaling the beginning of a formal meeting. High King Varath raised his hand, calling for silence. "We gathered today," he said, "to decide the role of this human visitor in our affairs. His actions may affect Zerathia, the council, and the entire sector." Elias nodded respectfully, then glanced around the room. His gaze met Lysera's briefly. She noticed no malice, no pride, no arrogance, only calm determination. And yet, despite that, she felt a deep, unsettling fear, not of harm, but of the unknown, of a force she could not control, a mind she could not predict. The meeting began with council members asking questions, making calculations, and debating fiercely. Some questioned Elias's strength, dismissing him as a mere human. Others admitted reluctantly that his calm composure, clarity of thought, and unexpected insight were extraordinary. Lysera leaned forward on her chair, unable to stop herself. She whispered to herself, "How can one human do so much? Without anything?" Her voice trembled with a mix of fear and fascination. King Varath's eyes softened as he watched his daughter. "Courage comes in many forms, Lysera," he said quietly. "Sometimes it is the smallest, simplest beings who can teach us the greatest lessons." Outside the palace, the violet light of Zerathia's twin suns shimmered across the city, reflecting off the crystal towers. Ships and drones flew silently in the distance. Yet inside the palace, the presence of one human warrior had changed everything. Fear, respect, curiosity, and awe mingled in the hearts of all who watched him. Elias did not speak unless necessary. He observed, listened, and responded with thoughtfulness and clarity. Each answer, each gesture slowly reshaped the perceptions of the council members. Even the princess, who had feared him at first sight, could not help but feel a spark of admiration. As the first day of his arrival drew to a close, Elias stood near the grand windows of the palace hall, looking out over the city. He thought of the challenges ahead, of the trials and dangers that might come, and of the unlikely role he would play in alien politics. He did not flinch. He had faced the unknown before, and he would do so again. Lysera, hidden in the shadows of her balcony, watched him silently. Her fear had not vanished, but it had changed. The human warrior who had terrified her now fascinated her. He was a mystery, a force, and a lesson all at once. She whispered under her breath, almost to herself, "He may terrify me, but perhaps he is the bravest of all." The night fell over Zerathia, twin moons casting silver light across the crystal city. In the palace, a new story had begun, the story of a human among aliens, a warrior unlike any other, and a princess learning that courage could come from the most unexpected places. And somewhere, in the quiet of the hall, Elias prepared himself for the trials to come, unaware that his presence had already changed the hearts and minds of an entire world. The next morning, the grand hall of Zerathia's palace buzzed with activity. Delegates from distant star systems filled the chamber, their voices echoing like a symphony of alien tones. Some were tall and shimmering like living crystals. Others had multiple limbs or eyes, moving with a precision that humans could barely imagine. Yet amidst all this alien presence, one figure drew every gaze: Commander Elias, the human warrior who had arrived unarmed, unshielded, and unafraid. Lysera watched him from her balcony seat, her green eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. She still could not understand how one human, so ordinary in appearance, could command such attention from beings whose technology far exceeded anything humanity had created. She had seen him walk into the palace without hesitation, answer questions without hesitation, and remain calm while every other being around him had reacted with awe or suspicion. King Vareth rose to begin the council session. His voice, deep and resonant, filled the chamber. Today, he announced, we are gathered not merely to observe a visitor, but to understand the human presence among us. We have heard tales of your bravery, human. We now require evidence of your wisdom and your resolve. Elias stepped forward, his movements smooth but deliberate. He did not carry a weapon, and yet there was no hesitation in his posture. I will do my best to meet your expectations, he said simply. His words, quiet yet firm, drew the attention of every delegate. The first challenge was posed immediately. Zytrax, the crystalline advisor, spoke in his musical tones. Human, you must answer the question of trust. If Zerathia is to cooperate with humanity, we must know that your intentions are clear and your judgment sound. How will you prove this? Elias paused, considering the question. The delegates had relied for centuries on technology and strategy simulations to judge decisions. Humans, however, often relied on intuition, reasoning, and observation. Elias took a deep breath. Trust, he began, is built not on weapons or shields, but on action and honesty. If you want to know who I am and what I can offer, watch how I respond to the challenges before me. Judge me not by my appearance, but by my choices. A few delegates exchanged skeptical glances. Trust was something calculated, measured, and rarely given to a single individual, especially one as unprotected as a human. Yet some in the room could not help but notice the weight of Elias's words. There was certainty in his calm voice that no calculation could produce. King Varath nodded slowly. Very well. Your first task is observation and reasoning. You will participate in our council debate, offering advice and solutions. Prove that a human mind can match our most advanced intellects. Immediately, the chamber transformed into a whirl of activity. Holographic displays shimmered, showing disputes over trade agreements, resource allocations, and security concerns across multiple star systems. Delegates argued in rapid bursts, exchanging complex numerical projections, energy readings, and predicted outcomes. Elias stepped closer, observing quietly. He did not interrupt. He did not react with alarm. Instead, he studied patterns, the way certain delegates reacted when challenged, the subtle gestures that indicated disagreement or doubt, and the timing of their statements. His eyes moved across the holographic displays, recognizing inconsistencies that none of the advanced scanners had detected. Lysera leaned forward, her fear mingling with curiosity. She whispered to herself, "How does he see it all so clearly? Even the machines cannot predict his thoughts." She could not understand why her own people, with all their advanced knowledge, were struggling while this human remained composed and confident. Elias finally spoke. "If I may," he said calmly, "there is an inconsistency in your energy resource allocations. The projections assume perfect efficiency, but your supply lines have unaccounted delays. If left unaddressed, these delays could destabilize several systems in the next cycle. I propose an adjustment that redistributes resources to compensate for delays and ensures stability while maintaining security." The room fell silent. Aliens who relied on calculations and simulations were momentarily stunned. One of the older delegates, a tall being with translucent skin and glowing veins, tilted his head. "You suggest a solution based on observation and prediction without our simulations?" he asked incredulously. Elias nodded. "Observation, logic, and attention to detail often reveal solutions that pure calculation cannot. Systems are not always predictable. Sometimes intuition, combined with careful analysis, provides answers machines overlook." King Varath studied him closely. Lysera could see a glimmer of surprise and respect in her father's eyes. "Indeed," he said, "humans have long been underestimated. Let us see if this extends beyond theory to action." The next test was more interactive. Delegates were asked to role-play crisis scenarios. An alien transport ship was under attack in a simulation, and council members debated responses using advanced technologies and energy shields. Elias observed quickly, noting that the aliens focused on maximum force rather than strategy or adaptability. He stepped forward. "If I may suggest," he said, "we could use a distraction combined with a smaller, precise intervention. The attackers may expect overwhelming power, but a focused approach minimizes risk and protects civilians. The aliens paused, their voices faltering. They had never considered a response that did not rely entirely on superior force. Yet when they followed Elias's suggestion in the simulation, the outcome was immediately better. Casualties were minimized, the attackers neutralized, and the transport ship remained intact. Lysera's heart raced. She could feel the tension in the room shift. The human warrior whom she had feared at first sight was demonstrating not only courage but insight. The fear she felt was not of his strength but of the way he challenged their assumptions. Some delegates began to whisper, "Perhaps humans are more clever than we believed." Others muttered about unpredictability, the quality that Zerathians rarely encountered among advanced civilizations. Machines could calculate many outcomes, but humans introduced variables that no algorithm could fully anticipate. Zytrax tilted his crystalline head. "Your methods, they are unusual, yet effective. You rely on observation, reasoning, and foresight rather than energy projection. Why?" Elias replied simply, "Because humans have learned that sometimes survival depends on thinking differently. We cannot rely on superior weapons alone. We must adapt, improvise, and anticipate. These skills, more than strength, define us." Lysera felt a strange mix of fear and admiration. She had heard of humans' resilience before, but seeing it in action was different. This human, unarmed and seemingly ordinary, was already influencing decisions at the highest level. She could not deny it. His mind was sharp, precise, and unshakable. King Vareth finally leaned back, his face thoughtful. "The Council has observed many beings from across the galaxy. Few have impressed me as this human has. His courage is evident, but his insight, it may be a rare gift indeed." Elias bowed slightly. "I do not seek praise, Your Majesty. I seek only to contribute what I can and to understand what I do not." Lysera watched him carefully. Fear still lingered, but her respect grew with every word, every action. She realized something important. Humans, while physically less advanced than Zerathians, possessed qualities that machines and technology could not replicate: courage, creativity, intuition, and moral clarity. The council session continued for hours. Elias listened carefully, spoke only when necessary, and offered solutions that others had overlooked. Each time, delegates were forced to reconsider their assumptions. Even the most skeptical began to acknowledge the human's worth. By the end of the day, the chamber had shifted in subtle ways. Discussions were calmer, decisions more thoughtful, and a sense of possibility filled the room. Lysera, still seated on her balcony, allowed herself a small smile. She whispered quietly, "Perhaps humans are not to be feared, but to be understood." Yet the fear remained a whisper beneath her admiration. This human warrior was unpredictable, his mind capable of outcomes no Zerathian could fully foresee, and that unpredictability terrified her in a way she could not explain. As the sun set over Zerathia's twin moons, casting silver and violet light across the city, Elias stood silently in the council hall, observing the delegates. He knew the next challenges would test not only his courage, but his ability to navigate political tension, alien customs, and unseen dangers. But he did not flinch. He had faced unknown worlds before, and he would do so again. Lysera, hidden from view, continued to watch him. She realized that fear could sometimes become fascination, and that respect could grow from awe. The human warrior who had terrified her had also inspired her, and deep inside, she knew that his presence would change the course of Zerathia forever. The morning sun spilled violet light across Zerathia's crystal towers, as the palace prepared for the most anticipated event of the year, the Labyrinth of Eternity. Legends spoke of it as a trial that tested not only physical strength, but intelligence, courage, and moral character. Many Zerathians had entered, confident in their advanced technology and calculated strategies. Few had ever returned. High King Vareth stood at the entrance to the labyrinth, his robes gleaming in the morning light. Princess Lysera stood beside him, her hands tightly gripping the railing of her balcony seat above. Her heart pounded with both fear and fascination. Today, the human warrior, Commander Elias, would face the labyrinth, an ancient, nearly impossible challenge that had humbled the strongest aliens. "Are you certain he is ready?" Lysera asked, her voice tinged with worry. Vareth studied Elias calmly, who stood just a few paces away, scanning the labyrinth's massive entrance. Readiness is not just about physical skill, Lysera. It is about courage, wisdom, and the will to persist. That human may surprise us all. Elias looked at the labyrinth. Its entrance was framed by jagged crystal pillars shimmering with an unnatural light. A low hum filled the air, vibrating against the floor and resonating through the bones. This was a place of challenge, mystery, and danger, but he did not hesitate. His calm, steady gaze reflected a confidence born of countless trials on worlds far from Earth. "Very well," the king announced to the council. "Let the trial begin." As the crowd fell silent, Elias stepped forward, his boots clicking against the crystal floor. Immediately the labyrinth seemed to react. Paths shifted, walls moved, and illusions of creatures flickered in the air. Many who entered were trapped by fear or indecision. But Elias did not falter. He moved carefully, observing patterns, listening to subtle sounds, and testing the reactions of the shifting walls. Lysera watched from above, holding her breath. She had been terrified of this human from the start, but seeing him move calmly into the labyrinth filled her with a mixture of awe and anxiety. He seemed entirely composed, yet every step was deliberate, every decision measured. Hours passed. The labyrinth's challenges were many and varied. In one chamber, Elias faced a pit filled with shifting light that created the illusion of a bottomless fall. He paused, breathing steadily, and observed the light patterns. Using stones and small reflections, he calculated the true distance to the floor and leaped safely across. The illusions, while terrifying, could not deceive him because he relied on observation and reasoning. In another chamber, he encountered a series of alien symbols that shifted constantly on the walls. Many previous challengers had panicked, attempting to memorize sequences or rely on luck. Elias studied the symbols carefully, noticing the patterns in their movement. With patience, he deciphered the sequence, and the path forward opened. Lysera's pulse quickened. He can do this?" she whispered. Fear and admiration warred within her. This human, so ordinary in appearance, was facing trials that had defeated the most advanced Zerathians. And yet he remained calm, his mind focused and unshakable. As he progressed deeper, the labyrinth's challenges became moral tests as well. In one chamber, a trapped alien creature, a small, delicate being with translucent wings, cried for help. The path forward led around it, offering an easy escape. Many challengers would have ignored the creature, focusing only on personal success. Elias paused. He looked at the creature, then at the path forward. Carefully, he found a way to manipulate the shifting walls, creating a small passage that allowed the creature to escape without endangering his own progress. He did not hesitate. Compassion, he knew, was as important as courage. From her balcony, Lysera gasped quietly. Fear had returned not from danger but from amazement. This human possessed qualities beyond strength or intelligence, qualities that challenged everything she had believed about courage. He was resourceful, compassionate, and fearless all at once. The labyrinth's final chamber awaited, a vast, circular space where walls shifted unpredictably and the floor seemed alive with energy. Past challengers had faced illusions of their worst fears here, and many had surrendered, paralyzed by their own imaginations. Elias entered slowly, scanning every detail. The illusions appeared, towering shadows, threatening shapes, and whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Yet Elias did not falter. He focused on reality, testing every step using sound and movement to detect what was real and what was trickery. When a shadow lunged, he sidestepped and redirected it using reflections from the crystal floor. When whispers tried to confuse him, he concentrated on the rhythm of his own breathing. Hours turned into a tense night. Elias moved with precision and patience, never allowing fear to dictate his actions. The labyrinth, designed to challenge even the cleverest minds, seemed almost alive, but human adaptability and perseverance proved stronger than illusion. At last, he reached the center. A glowing crystal orb hovered in the middle of the chamber, the traditional reward for completing the labyrinth. He approached it carefully, aware that some traps might still exist. With steady hands, he touched the orb. A soft hum resonated, and the walls of the labyrinth shifted one final time, opening the exit. Elias stepped out into the sunlight. The council and gathered spectators erupted into a mixture of astonished murmurs and applause. Few Zerathians had ever completed the labyrinth of eternity, and none had done so with the combination of intelligence, courage and compassion he had shown. Lysera, leaning forward, could hardly believe her eyes. The human who had terrified her had faced every challenge with grace and strength. Fear transformed into something new, admiration and respect. She realized that Elias's courage was not reckless but deliberate and thoughtful. He had survived because he combined all the qualities that Zerathians prized: courage, intelligence, and morality. King Verath approached Elias, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have completed a trial that many have failed, human. You have demonstrated not just courage, but wisdom and compassion. You honor us all," Elias bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. The labyrinth tests more than strength, it tests the heart." "I am grateful for the challenge," delegates whispered among themselves. The human had proven something none had fully expected, that bravery and intelligence, when combined with morality, could surpass even the most advanced technology. Zerathia's perception of humanity shifted in a single day. Lysera descended from her balcony, her steps light but determined. She approached Elias, curiosity shining in her eyes. I thought humans were weak. I thought you relied on nothing but luck or courage. But you are extraordinary," Elias smiled faintly. "Strength comes in many forms, Princess. Technology, energy, and force are not everything. Sometimes careful thought, compassion, and persistence are stronger than any weapon." Lysera nodded slowly. "I see that now, though I admit you still terrify me." Elias laughed softly. "Fear can be respect sometimes, and respect is the first step toward understanding." For the first time, Lysera realized that fear and admiration could coexist. The human warrior who had terrified her had also inspired her. His presence had changed something fundamental, not just in the council or the palace, but in her own understanding of courage and strength. The sun began to set over Zerathia, casting violet and silver light over the city. The labyrinth had tested Elias's mind, body, and heart, and he had emerged victorious. The council members, the delegates, and even the princess had witnessed something extraordinary. Humans, it seemed, could shine in ways no one had fully anticipated. As the crowd dispersed, Elias stood quietly, reflecting on the day's events. Challenges would continue, dangers were still ahead, and alien politics remained unpredictable. But he had faced the first true test and emerged not only unbroken but respected. Lysera watched him from a distance, a sense of wonder filling her heart. The human warrior had proven that courage was not measured by size or technology, but by will, ingenuity, and heart. She understood now why she had feared him at first sight, because humans possessed something that Zerathians could not easily measure or predict. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that this human, this warrior who terrified her, would continue to shape the destiny of Zerathia in ways she could not yet imagine. The palace of Zerathia gleamed under the light of twin moons, their silver beams reflecting off the crystal towers and casting long, delicate shadows across the courtyard. After Elias's remarkable success in the Labyrinth of Eternity, the court buzzed with awe and discussion. Delegates whispered about the human warrior, sharing stories of his calm intelligence, courage, and even compassion toward the trapped creatures in the labyrinth. Princess Lysera walked through the corridors, her mind still occupied with thoughts of Elias. She could not deny the admiration that had grown within her. Yet alongside it, a thread of unease remained. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable. Elias had proven himself capable of incredible feats, and that unpredictability both inspired and terrified her. Suddenly, the palace alarms rang, a subtle, high-frequency signal that most aliens barely noticed. But Elias, who had trained for countless emergencies across many star systems, immediately recognized the sound. He stiffened, scanning the grand hall where delegates were gathering for a late-evening council session. Lysera noticed his attention and followed his gaze. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the murmurs of the court. Elias did not answer immediately. His eyes moved swiftly, observing subtle movements in the crowd. Something was off. Certain delegates were exchanging brief, coded signals, gestures that were too quick for ordinary eyes but clear to someone trained to notice anomalies. "Princess," Elias said softly, "there may be a hidden threat among the council. We must act carefully." Lysera's eyes widened. "A threat? Here, but the council is secure. Guards, shields, and sensors. Technology is only part of security," Elias replied. Unseen intentions, clever planning, and exploitation of trust can bypass even the most advanced defenses. Before she could respond, the hidden faction made its move. Several drones, camouflaged to appear as ordinary decorative lights, activated. They emitted pulses that disrupted the energy shields around the council members, causing panic and confusion. Some delegates froze, unsure what had occurred, while others attempted to counter with their energy-based defenses. Elias reacted instantly. Moving calmly but decisively, he used the crystal pillars as cover while observing the hidden devices. His training allowed him to detect patterns invisible to others. He identified the signal source and understood that the attackers intended to frame humans for the disruption, hoping to destabilize trust between the Council and humanity. Lysera gasped. "They want to make it look like you?" Elias nodded, moving silently through the hall. "Yes, but the truth can be revealed if we act wisely." He approached a central console, one of the main control hubs of the palace. Using simple tools from his belt and careful manipulation, he intercepted the disruptive signals. The pulses from the hidden drones began to fade, and the energy shields gradually stabilized. Delegates regained their composure, though confusion and fear lingered in their expressions. From her balcony, Lysera could see Elias working swiftly. His calm, deliberate actions inspired trust even in those who had been unsure of humans. He was not using advanced alien technology. Instead, he relied on ingenuity, observation, and strategy, human qualities that seemed almost magical to the Zarathians. The hidden faction, realizing their plan was being foiled, attempted a more direct approach. Masked agents moved toward key council members, hoping to create chaos. Elias anticipated their movements. Using the environment to his advantage, he set off small mechanisms to distract and trap the attackers without harming anyone. Crystal panels slid into position, blocking paths. Reflective surfaces redirected light to temporarily blind the intruders. Lysera's heart raced. She could not believe the human warrior's foresight. Each step he took was precise, calculated, and effective. He was protecting the council, the palace, and even the delegates who had doubted him, all without relying on weapons or energy shields. The intruders, frustrated and disoriented, tried to retreat, but Elias was already ahead of them. He moved like a shadow, predicting their escape routes and sealing exits with clever manipulations of the palace's mechanisms. In less than an hour, every hidden threat was neutralized. The council was safe, and the palace had not suffered damage. King Verath stepped forward, his deep voice echoing through the hall. "Human, your actions have saved this council and exposed a hidden conspiracy. You have acted with courage, skill, and wisdom that surpasses many of our own finest members." Elias bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I did what I could. The truth must guide action, and careful observation can prevent chaos before it spreads." The council erupted into murmurs of admiration. Delegates who had doubted him now spoke of his ingenuity, his calm under pressure, and his remarkable understanding of alien systems despite his human limitations. Lysera, standing above, felt her fear dissolve completely into awe. After the immediate crisis passed, Elias approached the princess. "Princess Lysera," he said quietly, "the threat has been removed, but caution is still necessary. Not all dangers are visible at first glance." Lysera nodded, her green eyes shining. "I understand. Today, you've shown me that courage is more than bravery. It is intelligence, compassion, and the willingness to act when others hesitate." Elias smiled faintly. "And sometimes fear can teach us to be vigilant. But courage is choosing to act despite fear." Lysera thought about his words. She remembered the first day she had seen him enter the palace, the trembling fear in her chest and the way he had handled every challenge with calm determination. She realized that humans, though physically less advanced, possessed qualities that even the most technologically advanced aliens could not predict. Adaptability, courage, and moral clarity made them extraordinary. King Verath, observing the scene, addressed the council. "Let this day serve as a lesson. Strength is not measured only by power or technology. Sometimes it is the courage to face the unknown, the wisdom to act decisively, and the heart to protect others that defines true strength." Lysera nodded, understanding the lesson more deeply than anyone else in the room. Elias had not only survived the labyrinth, but he had also saved the council from a hidden threat, proving that human ingenuity and courage were forces to be reckoned with. Delegates began to approach Elias, seeking advice and guidance for future challenges. They asked questions about strategy, planning, and decision-making. For a human, these were simple things: common sense, observation, and careful reasoning. But to the aliens, they seemed remarkable. He explained calmly, always considering the consequences, never seeking glory, and always showing respect. Lysera watched, feeling a sense of pride mixed with wonder. The human warrior who had terrified her, the one who had challenged her fears, was now shaping the decisions of an entire planet. She realized that his presence was not only changing the Council, but also the way Zerathians thought about humanity. As the night deepened, the palace quieted. Elias finally took a moment to rest, sitting quietly near the grand windows that overlooked the Crystal City. Lysera joined him, her expression thoughtful. "I used to fear humans," she said softly. "I thought you were unpredictable in ways that could harm us. But now, I see that unpredictability can also be a strength. You inspire courage in others, not just fear." Elias looked at her, his eyes calm and steady. "Humans are often underestimated," he said. "We face challenges without the tools others rely on. So we learn to rely on our minds, our hearts, and our will. That unpredictability comes from adaptability, not recklessness." Lysera nodded slowly. "I understand. You've taught me something important today. Not just about humans, but about courage itself." Outside, the city shimmered under twin moons, peaceful once more. Yet both Lysera and Elias knew that the galaxy was vast, full of challenges and unknown dangers. But they also knew that courage, intelligence, and moral clarity, qualities embodied by humans, could overcome even the most hidden threats. For Lysera, the lesson was personal. She had feared this human, then admired him, and now she trusted him. She realized that true strength was not measured only by size or power, but by the willingness to face danger, think clearly, and act with purpose. And for Elias, the night was a reminder that his presence in Zerathia was not only a challenge to the Council, but an opportunity to show that humanity could survive, adapt, and lead in ways the universe had not yet imagined. The hidden threat had been defeated, but the story was far from over. The galaxy was watching, and humans, unpredictable and courageous, were beginning to leave their mark. The twin suns of Zerathia rose slowly, casting a soft violet-gold light across the Crystal City. After the hidden threat was neutralized, the palace buzzed with renewed energy. Delegates from distant star systems moved through the Grand Hall, discussing strategies, alliances, and the implications of the recent events. Yet all eyes often returned to one figure, Commander Elias, the human warrior whose presence had reshaped their perception of courage, ingenuity, and leadership. Princess Lysera sat on her balcony, watching him interact with the council members. She remembered the fear she had felt when she first saw him. That fear had transformed over the days, first into curiosity, then admiration, and now something more profound: respect and understanding. She realized that humans possessed a kind of strength that Zerathians could not measure: the ability to adapt, to think quickly, and to act with both intelligence and heart. King Verath called the council to order. "Delegates," he began, his voice steady and commanding, "we have witnessed remarkable events. The labyrinth of eternity has been completed, and a hidden faction has been exposed thanks to a single human warrior. It is clear that humanity possesses qualities that our calculations and technology cannot fully account for." The council members murmured among themselves. Many had doubted Elias at first, some with suspicion, others with outright disbelief. Yet the human had proven his value time and again. The labyrinth had tested his courage and intelligence. The hidden threat had tested his ingenuity, decisiveness, and moral clarity. Now, standing before the council, Elias embodied qualities that Zerathians admired yet rarely possessed. King Verath turned to Elias. "Human, your actions have earned not only our respect, but our trust. Zerathia offers an alliance with humanity, built upon mutual understanding, cooperation, and the recognition of each other's strengths. Will you accept?" Elias nodded. "I accept, Your Majesty. My goal has always been to foster understanding and cooperation, to bridge gaps between species. If this alliance strengthens both our peoples, then it is a path worth pursuing." Delegates erupted in quiet applause. Some bowed to Elias, others whispered words of admiration. Lysera, still on her balcony, felt a surge of pride. She descended quietly to stand near him. "You've done something extraordinary," she said softly. Not just with the Council, but with me. You've shown me that courage and strength are more than weapons or shields. They are in the mind, the heart, and the will. Elias smiled faintly. Fear is natural, Princess. It reminds us of what we value, of what we must protect. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Lysera nodded. She realized that she had learned more from this human than from any lessons or teachings she had received in her life. Fear had led her to pay attention. Admiration had opened her mind, and now respect had taught her about the true nature of courage. As the Council began formal discussions on trade, resource sharing, and mutual protection, Elias participated actively. His human perspective, grounded in observation, reasoning, and practical problem-solving, contributed insights that the Zerathians had never considered. Plans were refined, conflicts resolved, and new strategies were created. All around him, the Council members began to recognize that human adaptability and ingenuity were not just useful, they were transformative. Lysera watched him closely. The same warrior who had terrified her now inspired not only the Council but also the young princess herself. She understood that humans were not defined by size, technology, or physical strength. They were defined by courage, intelligence, creativity, and moral clarity, qualities that could change outcomes, save lives, and shape civilizations. Hours later, the Council session ended. Delegates left the hall exchanging respectful glances and words of admiration toward the human warrior. Outside the palace, the city sparkled under the light of twin moons. Flying ships glided silently above, leaving trails of energy light, while citizens celebrated the new era of cooperation and understanding between humans and Zerathians. Lysera approached Elias privately, her expression thoughtful. "I have one question," she said. "Why do you humans seem different? Even when faced with danger, you remain calm, thoughtful, and fearless in ways that none of us are. What is your secret?" Elias considered her question. "There is no secret, Princess," he said. "Humans face uncertainty every day. We face dangers, challenges, and risks that cannot always be predicted. We learn to adapt, to think critically, and to act decisively. Courage grows from experience, understanding, and the choice to protect what matters. Perhaps that is why I appear different." Lysera smiled. "Different, yes. Terrifying at first, but now, inspiring. You've changed the way I see not only humans, but courage itself." Elias looked out across the city. The galaxy is vast and unpredictable. There will be more challenges, more conflicts, and more opportunities to prove ourselves. But today we have taken the first step toward understanding and cooperation. King Vareth joined them, placing a hand on Lysera's shoulder. "You have both learned a valuable lesson," he said. "Strength is not always measured by technology or power. Sometimes it is the courage to act, the wisdom to understand, and the heart to protect that matters most." Lysera nodded, glancing at Elias. She knew that humanity's qualities were unique and invaluable, capable of shaping the galaxy in ways Zerathians had not imagined. Over the following weeks, the alliance between humanity and Zerathia grew stronger. Trade agreements were established, technology and knowledge were shared, and joint patrols ensured the safety of both planets. Elias continued to serve as a representative of humanity, guiding the Zerathians with calm intelligence and strategic insight. Wherever he went, humans were seen not as weak or primitive, but as capable, courageous, and inspiring. Lysera often accompanied him during these meetings, observing his interactions with other delegates. She noticed how his simple honesty, adaptability, and courage won trust wherever he went. People began to look beyond appearances and technology, seeing the deeper value of human qualities. One evening, as the twin moons reflected off the crystal spires, Lysera and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The air was calm, and the hum of distant ships created a peaceful rhythm. "You've done more than I imagined," Lysera said softly. "You've not only earned respect, but you've changed hearts and minds. Humans terrify me, and yet they inspire me." Elias smiled faintly. "Fear and inspiration often travel together. We are all capable of greatness when we act with courage, thought, and heart. Humanity has much to offer, and so do the Zerathians. Together, perhaps we can achieve more than either of us could alone." Lysera nodded slowly. "Yes, together." She looked at him with a mixture of admiration and trust, realizing that the human warrior who had terrified her had become someone she could rely on, someone who could shape the future of Zerathia and humanity alike. As the night deepened, the palace glimmered with quiet light. Citizens celebrated the newfound alliance, unaware of the subtle but profound shift in perception that had occurred. Humans were no longer seen as fragile outsiders. They were recognized for their courage, ingenuity, and moral clarity. And Commander Elias, the human warrior, had become the symbol of that recognition. The story of his arrival, his trials, and his courage spread throughout the galaxy. Tales of a human who faced impossible challenges, navigated alien politics, and acted with both intelligence and compassion inspired other civilizations. Zerathia, once skeptical of outsiders, now saw humanity as a force of potential, capable of shaping alliances, resolving conflicts, and leading with honor. Princess Lysera, reflecting on everything she had witnessed, realized that fear had been her first teacher. Fear had drawn her attention, curiosity had led her to understanding, and respect had opened her heart to admiration. The human warrior had taught her that true strength was measured not by size or technology, but by courage, ingenuity, and the will to act with purpose. Elias, standing quietly beside her, understood that his journey on Zerathia was just beginning. Challenges would continue to arise, threats would emerge, and uncertainties would test him and his people. Yet he had proven that humanity could face the unknown, adapt and overcome with courage, thought, and heart. The twin moons shone brightly above the crystal city, casting silver and violet light across the palace. In that light, a new era began, not just for Zerathia, but for humanity in the galaxy. One human warrior had arrived, and in doing so had changed the course of history. Lysera whispered softly, almost to herself, "Perhaps fear is the first step toward understanding, and courage the path to greatness." She smiled, looking at Elias. "You are terrifying, and yet you inspire more than anyone I've ever known." Elias simply nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them. Together they would face whatever the galaxy held, guided by courage, intelligence, and the human spirit that had begun to shine across Zerathia. And so, the human warrior who had once terrified an alien princess had become a beacon of hope, respect, and inspiration, not through weapons or technology, but through courage, ingenuity, and heart. The galaxy would remember this day, and humanity's story among the stars had only just begun.